So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Star Wars? So let's start the series. Many mysterious people, each with their own aura, sat in a circle and meditated. There are 9 in all, 3 dark, 3 light, and 3 gray. They all started to awaken from their meditative state. The smallest one spoke a strange dialect. Separate once again, are we? The other 8 nodded, followed by a blonde who stated, "It was depressing that we could not control our actions due to those dark eyes." "Does anyone know where we are now?" asked a brown-skinned man, while most of the others shook their heads except for one man who was almost bald-shaven. "I have learned that we have been contained into a child, one with a very strong connection with the Force." Many individuals were intrigued. "This child, who is, A black and red-skinned man growled. "Just spit it out already, what's wrong?" The man shook his head, stating, "You have to experience it for yourself here." There was a pause before a series of yells. "The child's name is a foreign speech, but his name is Naruto Uzumaki. Wait, I found something, by the Force. This is unacceptable. Those worms dare harm a child so young," shouted a helmeted guy. "Yes, the shortest one muttered, holding back his anger. "Strong to withstand such treatment, this child is," the blonde said. "Isn't there something we can do?" And they all became silent in thought before an evil laugh could be heard. The others looked at the darkest of them all. "Why don't we teach the boy and make him the most powerful being to walk this planet? But we must make a pact for this to happen," they asked. "Yes, that is an option, but what is this pact?" the dark-skinned person said with a worried expression. "It's just a promise that none of us will influence the boy's actions. We are only allowed to train him. What path he chooses is up to him. Whether it is good or evil, we have no say in the matter." "Agreed?" the dark-skinned person sighed. "Honor the pact, we will," declared the short one confidently. "All right, it is agreed. None of us will have the power to influence the boy in any way whatsoever. Now when will we bring the boy before us?" The others gave a nod. The red-skinned one grunted. "Bring him now. The longer we wait, the longer the boy might get hurt." They all agreed that it was time for the child to meet his tenants. Naruto hurried as fast as his little legs would carry him. For the past year, he had been the target of riots and assassination attempts after being kicked out of the orphanage. The 6-year-old child was confused since no one could explain what he had done wrong. Their names throughout the attack were Demon and Fox. They were violent, using whatever they could find to harm him. But Naruto had just found a forest that the mobs had never explored. The Forest of Death. For Naruto, it was a sanctuary, although many called him crazy for going in. In actuality, he was respected by all of the so-called beasts. They only attacked others to protect their territory. Nonetheless, Naruto made friends with a few, including the giant tigers and big bears. He occasionally played with the tiger cubs because, for some reason, he could communicate with them mentally. How he did it, he simply did. But Naruto reached his grove only in time to dodge an oncoming water dragon. He disappeared into the jungle, much to the astonishment and outrage of the audience. Afterwards, Naruto begged the mother bear in his head to give him a place to stay as he ran into the bear cave. The mother bear took Naruto and placed him with the cubs. The animals were Naruto's sole friends for the time being. Naruto soon fell asleep before the most important event of his life took place. Naruto groaned when he awoke to find 9 people watching him from a few yards away. The intensity of their presence almost caused Naruto to pass out. He gulped hard and bowed his head respectfully, knowing for some reason that was the right way to greet them. "We are not breath-disturbed, young one. Rise, child, and state your name." "My name is Uzumaki Naruto, and I'm sorry for disturbing you with my presence." Naruto made a scratchy, rasping sound. The dark-skinned one inquired, "Naruto, can you guess why you are here?" Naruto sweated. "Well, either I'm dead or this is one hell of a dream." The person in the odd helmet chuckled. Naruto's eyes constricted after widening. Naruto's look changed from one of anger to one of surprise. "You are not dead, young Naruto, you are in your mind. And we are the pieces of what you call 9 Fox. So that's the reason the villagers hate me?" Naruto said. "I thought that the 9 Fox was a mindless beast," growled a man, with crimson and black skin. "We were being controlled, but now we are separate again," Naruto remarked after considering the situation for a while. "I'm listening. We have a proposition for you, that is if you're willing to listen." When the short one said, "Let's introduce ourselves first." "Yes, the others nodded. The person with the red and black skin stood up and announced, "My title is Darth Maul, Sith Lord." Naruto was confused but decided to wait until later when the helmeted person remarked, "My title is Darth Revan, I am a Dark Lord of the Sith." "I am Darth Plagueis the Wise, Dark Lord of the Sith," declared the towering humanoid. "My name is Darth Vader, Sith Lord," stated a man in armor and with odd gadgets. And lastly, "My name is Galen Merrick, also known as Starkiller." remarked a young man with a shaven head. The tall, dark-skinned guy got up and stated, "My name is Mace W. Windu, Jedi Master." The man with the blonde hair answered, "I am Luke Skywalker, Jedi Grand Master." Why were Sith and Jedi titles so prevalent? A man who looked old leaped to his feet and stated, "My name is Obi-Wan Kenobi, Jedi Knight." Naruto was confused. "Yoda, my name is Jedi Master am I?" The last one, who was short, green, and had pointed ears, stated, "Can you explain what your titles mean?" Naruto swallowed and asked, as Mace motioned for him to sit on a chair that appeared out of nowhere. "You see, Naruto, long ago the universe was connected, people could visit other inhabited planets. The universe was large and full of power, the most powerful people though were the Force users." Starkiller explained, "The Force is what binds us, from you to the plants and animals, right to the planet itself. It was once said that one could do anything with the Force. An example, I brought down a starship the size of your village out of orbit to the ground." Maul groaned. "Damn it, Star, will you stop bragging about that?" Starkiller massaged the back of his head in embarrassment. Darth Vader spoke slowly. "The Force breath has two sides, a light breath and dark. According to Mace, the ones that followed the light were called Jedi, the ones that followed the dark were called Sith. The Jedi and Sith has been fighting for a very long time," Luke went on. "But one day the Force users was reduced to just me, and through that the Force was balanced. I tried to rebuild the Jedi Order but it didn't last long. Soon all Force users died out, we 9 spirits for some reason came together on this planet. Obi-Wan. Some higher power added us into the 9 Fox. We do not know why it happened, it just did, and I believe that we were put in you for a reason." Naruto, feeling more relaxed, asked, "Is there a way to be both light and dark?" "There is, but it is very difficult. No Jedi or Sith has ever had true balance between the light and dark parts of the Force. The closest ones were me and Revan. Why do you wish to know, young Naruto?" Starkiller laughed. "You see, on our planet we have the philosophy of yin and yang, dark and light. We believe that one must have balance to live a happy life," Naruto said with a cough. "A/N, you can sue me because I used the same thing in my previous story." "Wise for one so young, yes?" Yoda hummed. All of the guys nodded in agreement. Naruto then asked the critical question. "Now what?" Darth Plagueis remarked. "We have decided to train you to become the first Force user on this planet." And stood up. "We have decided that none of us will attempt to persuade you. We will just train. We now advise that you go to the headmaster and beg for permission to leave the community so that you can practice in secret, Naruto. Luke, we'll travel across the nations and put up with bad weather in order to develop your body and mind. And if we're lucky, find the resources to create you a weapon called a lightsaber." "What is a lightsaber?" Naruto asked, raising an eyebrow. "They are weapons that can burn anything they come into contact with and cut through steel," Maul remarked, flashing his yellow teeth in a cunning smile. "This truly incredible weapon comes in a variety of forms." Mace raised his hand to silence the others and stated, "Now, Naruto, you have to go and get your leader to let you travel for your first task. To get to a hamlet to the west, you must then traverse the desert. Please leave, we've seen a lot of chaos there. We'll talk again after you leave the village," Naruto said, forcing himself to stop thinking. As the others agreed, Starkiller smiled and declared, "This boy will be the most powerful Force user ever to grace the galaxy." Headmaster's office. "I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. Could you kindly say that again?" Third Headmaster Sarutobi added. "I said that I will be out of the village for an unknown extended period of time." With a worried expression. Knowing that this would probably occur, Naruto groaned. The third head teacher looked at Naruto as if he had sprouted a second head and questioned, "Why do you want to leave, Naruto?" "I know why I'm disliked, old man," Naruto replied coldly. The ancient headmaster started to sweat. "Whatever do you mean, Naruto?" Naruto pounded his little hand on the desk and shouted, "Don't lie to me, old man, I know about the 9 Fox. And now I'm going to provide you with an offer. Either you let me out of the village, or I'll let the 9 Fox free." Naruto pleaded with Kami to fall for his ploy. "What do you hope to achieve, Naruto-kun? Could Naruto really do that?" The headmaster went pale. The old man slouched in his chair, looking dejected, and the third headmaster thought, "I can't gamble the villagers' safety on something like this. I'd like some scrolls on chakra control, element manipulation, Need spirit art, Gen spirit art, Tai spirit art, and Fuan spirit art. You will allow me to travel, but you won't pursue me with A and BU. When the council bitch complains about me leaving, you'll develop a fucking backbone and tell them what I told you. Take a deep breath and speak softly," his eyes sorrowful. "Have everything I need by tomorrow, or I'll be gone till a month before the academy graduates. I understand why you kept the 9 Fox a secret from me. But as they say, good intentions pave the way to hell. You did just that, old man, If you had meant to keep me safe, you wouldn't have told the community that I was the 9 Foxes jailer. You have a long way to go before I will consider you the way I once did, old man. I'm sorry. Rather, you informed them and enacted a foolish law. Tomorrow, I'll see you at the front gate. When Naruto shifted the tone from old man to Headmaster Sama, the elderly man grimaced. It was heartbreaking to see his surrogate grandson gaze at him with dismay, and when the youngster departed, the headmaster put his head in his hands and wept. The following day, the front gate. Luke moaned. It was harsh, but it got the job done. Mace agreed. It was necessary. In the future we will teach you ways to change people's minds with the Force. Darth Plagueis smirked menacingly in Naruto's mind. I love the way you bluffed the old man like that, he said. Maul scowled. Yes, we feel a lot of turmoil there, and the desert is a good place to train. Naruto smiled. I get it, masters. You suggested that we travel to the Suna deserts in the west. Naruto cut the connection as the headmaster, dressed in ceremonial robes and a cap, walked up to him. He handed Naruto a large scroll and said, Inside are the things you asked for, including some clothing for wherever you might go. Just promise to come back, okay, Naruto? Naruto nodded and said, I swear, Headmaster Sama, I'll have a headband ready for me. The third headmaster nodded sorrowfully as he watched Naruto leave the main gates and disappear into the surrounding woodland. Please come back, Naruto-kun, she begged, with a single tear in her determined eyes. When you return, I'll be there for you. The two were not aware that a girl with lavender eyes was watching from behind a pole. The first few months of instruction. Despite his lack of strength, Naruto was able to defeat a low Jounin, or a high Chunin, because to his masters drilling him into the ground. His masters made him train harder after he discovered the existence of the shadow clones, the third headmaster named first on the provided scrolls. Before making hundreds of clones, each group working on something, he would get up every morning, wash, eat, and stretch. Luckily, he found that he could project some of his teachers into the clones' minds, which freed him from having numerous voices in his head so he could concentrate on physical training and meditation to build his force. The Jedi Masters taught Naruto healing, defensive force powers, and politics. The Sith told him about their military strategies and past experiences. The Grey taught him how to sense his surroundings, mind tricks, and movement prediction, and the Sith taught him how to use offensive force powers, manipulate/taunt enemies, and access an enemy's mind of information. In order to build muscle memory for calligraphy, Naruto employed a horde of clones before learning how to create seals. He did not utilize standard weight or gravity seals, but he did use seals for weight training. Naruto had an epiphany after learning that wind and water were his elemental affinities. After working for a week, he made a new seal that improved both his elemental manipulation and strength and speed. The seal would collect the owner's element affinity into weights based on chakra levels, and one had to work their element to maintain the weight's solidity and functionality. Naruto wrapped his entire body with seals for everything he could think of using his clones. Because he didn't want anybody to try to replicate his abilities or make women into baby factories, he had some for training, some with concealed weapons, some for improving body functions, and one to stop anyone from taking any biological samples of himself. He made sure that no eye to spirit art could harm him by etching a seal on his skull that would be impossible to erase. His clothing were finally cleansed and fixed by a seal. Naturally, Naruto only truly liked his hot spirit art, the other academy spirit art, explosive shadow clones, and shadow clones. He practiced manipulating elements and tried, but failed, to unite his water and wind elements. He found a technique in Thai spirit art known as devil leg, which just used one's legs for attack and defense. Darth Maul assisted him with this technique because, during his lifetime, he employed a similar technique with his twin lightsaber. However, in order to prevent cutting off an arm or leg when he eventually obtained a real lightsaber, Naruto hacked a branch into the shape of one and applied startling seals to the region where the blade would be. He was not skilled in Gen spirit art, but he could use the force to determine if he was in one, and he could use a chakra blast to destroy it, and all others within 100 feet. When Naruto had free time, he would write in the hopes that his books would give him a steady source of income. The majority of the books were copies of the stories his masters had told him, while others were about seals and other items to help other shinobi. He would sell the stories to everyone, but the shinobi books were exclusive to the village, Jounin, and higher. Despite his lack of force, he had the devil's luck when it came to gaming, which he also liked. Every time he went, he transformed into a tall, black-haired man in a tux suit. Because he was unable to get rid of his whisker marks, he soon became known as Fox. Over time, Naruto traveled to Sunakagir, stopping at several outposts and screens en route. When he finally reached the town, he saw nothing encouraging, but he had to use the mental trick so often that it became tedious. Sunakagir. He decided to take the scenic route after utilizing the mind trick to enter the village, and noticed that many people didn't look very beautiful. After spying around, he quickly learned that there wasn't much money to go around because the daimyo of Wind had been reducing their budget. Naruto continued to stroll till he reached a mostly deserted playground, when he witnessed a bunch of bigger children bullying a boy with red hair who was roughly his age. Naruto frowned and decided to intervene. The group leader shouted. Another boy hefted up a soccer ball and threw it at the red-haired boy, but the sand caught it and shielded the boy. No, demon, you cannot play with us. All you are is a monster. You will die alone, and no one will adore you. And everyone will celebrate on that day. Then, recognizing that the other youngsters were a danger, the sand blasted ahead in their direction. The children tried to get away, but the sand grabbed them, and the red-haired boy tried but failed to stop it. Let them go. The sand froze at the sound of the repetitive, icy voice, and the children risked their lives to get away. The boy with the red hair was surrounded by a solid wall as the sand started to ripple and quickly flew back. Naruto came over and waved his hand, causing the sand to fall to the ground dead. What's your name? Are you not here to murder me? If I wanted you dead, I would have done it already. Naruto scoffed. I don't want you dead, so let's get started. What is your name? I'm Uzumaki Naruto. The boy stopped shaking and said, My name is Gaara no Sabaku, thank you for saving them. Gaara happily clutched his teddy bear. You control the sand around you, don't you? Gaara glanced down in shame and said, No, the sand works by itself, attacking all that it thinks is a treat. Naruto stroked his chin and asked, Why does the sand protect you? You'd just be scared of me. Trust me, Gaara, not much can scare me. My father sealed the Ichibi no Shikaku into me. To do it, he sacrificed my mother. Gaara scowled and chose to cut the conversation short. Naruto smiled. What do you mean, Naruto? Gaara asked, looking confused. It appears to me that we're more alike than I imagined, Gaara. Will you be my friend then? Gaara said with a bright smile. I mean that I have the 9 Fox no Kitsune sealed in me. We are brothers, like it or not. Of course, Gaara, now I have to ask, why does it look like you haven't slept in months? Naruto nodded. Gaara grumbled. When I go to sleep, the stupid tanuki tries to take over my body. I've been forced to become an insu. What is it called? An insomniac? Gaara nodded. Yeah, that's it. And Naruto briefly took on a dejected expression before saying, If you want, Gaara, I could help you with the Ichibi. Really, what? Gaara was literally jumping up and down. Naruto calmed him down by adding, I'm going to talk to the tanuki and make sure you can sleep okay. Gaara was so happy that he could only nod in agreement. Naruto caressed Gaara's head and probed his mind. Gaara's ideas. He didn't enter anyone's head without help, so when he discovered nothing, he did the next best thing. Naruto emerged in a vast, endless desert with a small sun in the sky, no clouds, and no water for as far as the eye could see, Yoda and Darth Vader standing behind him. Does this location have a fat raccoon? The Biju could be seen shouting in the distance. Come here and say that to my face, why, asshole! Naruto yelled, making Yoda chuckle at him and Vader shake his head. Naruto and his chosen masters appeared in front of the Biju using force. The tall steel balls of the Ichibi were connected by corroded chains, and the Biju's neck was secured with a massive padlock featuring a rudimentary seal. Even though the Biju was restrained, it seemed like the chains would snap at the first sign of resistance, but Naruto would have none of it. The huge raccoon that was implanted in my pal is you. Have you ever been called an ugly motherfucker? Shikaku roared, sending a gigantic wave of wind toward the trio. Yoda humphed and with a tap of his staff shut the Biju's jaw. This one is rude. He needs to be more polite. Anger entered Shikaku's gaze. Are these rodents brave enough to mock him? Naruto's Grey Master took hold of the desert monster's throat and lowered its head until the padlock seal was near them. Now, Shikaku, my sole purpose in being here is to silence you. You've been ruining my new friend's mind for far too long. And now I'm going to fix that, Master Vader, if you will. Naruto thanked his master and started to use his strength and intellect to repair and enhance the seal. The Biju's legs buckled under the weight of the chains, and they stared in fear as the seal's shackles grew larger and stronger and lost their rust. Above the monster, a collection of strange pipes materialized, and with amazing speed, they shot into the Biju's rear. Shikaku screamed in pain as the pipes were inserted into his back, saying, You bastard, what are you doing? The beast began to be burdened by an increasing number of locks and chains. The seal was finished, but the Biju was terrified for its life after the pipes on its back started to drain the Yuki from him. The Yuki then passed through another seal on the pipes that filtered it into pure chakra, and the chakra that emerged from the pipes rose to the sky and into the sun, which grew larger over time. The new seal Shikaku prevents you from escaping and also allows Gaara to sleep. Now that he's got total control over the sand, you won't be able to control his thoughts either. Finally, the seal will slowly drain your Yuki and transfer it into Gaara. In a few years, you will simply be a small, unheard voice in the recesses of Gaara's thoughts. My friend will no longer be tormented by you. Biju was enraged when Naruto and his masters left after that. Damn you, Dot. When Naruto regained consciousness, he discovered that Gaara was fast asleep and that Anbu was all about him. Naruto understood that the only option was to fight. N.A. Aren't I in trouble? The Kaze master stood next to the two boys and remarked. You have no idea. When Naruto opened his eyes after regaining consciousness, Anbu was surrounding Gaara, who was happily sleeping. N.A. Aren't I in trouble? The Kaze master stood next to the two boys and remarked. You have no idea. Now, Kaze Master Sama, I think we can talk this out like civilized human beings, Naruto said. Isn't it unnecessary to use violence? The Kaze master snarled. You have 30 seconds to tell me what you did to my youngest child. Naruto looked around at the other Anbu, seeing into some of their minds to gauge their level of strength. The wind and puppet users made him wince, but he took a deep breath and decided to put an end to it. In conclusion, I was able to repair your son's seal, allowing him to sleep and better manage his sand. In addition, the Ichibi will vanish in a few years. The Kaze master narrowed his eyes, searching the boy's eyes for indications of dishonesty. After a while, he grunted and gestured for an Anbu to come. The Anbu was about to grab Gaara when it was violently shoved across the park, and Naruto frowned. Take my kid to my house and into his room. You will not touch my friend. You are a fraud. Naruto growled. You better have a good excuse for attacking my men, boy. The Kaze master growled, his eyes widening. Naruto then waved his hand to remove the Anbu's mask, which infuriated the Kaze master because the man behind it wasn't the same shinobi assigned to it, and his skin tone and facial features weren't native to Suna, suggesting that the Anbu was some sort of spy. Bring him to the questioners. This boy probably just stopped my son from being captured, the Kaze master said, snapping his fingers. Not wanting to take any more chances, the Kaze master picked up his son and turned to Naruto saying, Follow me, boy, we shall talk in my office. Naruto noticed the many shinobi staring in confusion as they made their way to the Kaze master building. However, how was he aware that the individual was a spy? The Kaze master inquired, examining Naruto with interest. Send for Chiyobasamum, tell her it's about Gaara's seal. The Kaze master put his son on a table and lifted the boy's shirt to gaze at the new seal, amazed by its intricacy, and Naruto simply sat in a chair, watching his surroundings and patiently letting his eyes drop. The Kaze master then went over to the intercom and said, Send for Chiyobasamum, tell her it's about Gaara's seal. Naruto rested for approximately an hour before the doors opened to reveal an elderly, short woman. How many times have I begged you to, Chiyoba-sama? What do you want, Kira? Moaned the Kaze master. Kira. The woman interrupted him, saying, I don't care, I was working on my puppets, and I don't need to be harassed by a hooligan like you. I don't have time for you. Chiyo, do you still feel bad about what happened to Gaara? You can bet your cocky ass that I do. I'm sorry, I must be going senile in my old age, the woman said, sighing. Well, if it's any conciliation, Gaara can now sleep. Did you just tell Gaara-chan to go to bed? When the master pointed to Naruto, Kira grinned and said, Just ask that young man next to you. Chiyo jerked when she finally saw Naruto sitting in a chair near her, thinking, This boy is good if he could hide his presence so well. You old hag, what are you staring at? Naruto opened one eye and remarked. Kira stiffened, waiting for Chiyo to attack him for being disrespectful. Naruto took off his hood to show his face to the puppet master and the Kaze master, who had no idea how he had looked before. His skin had paled, his whisker lines had thickened and lengthened, his eyes had a large, solid blue iris with yellow and purple circles on the outlines, his sun-kissed hair was even more unkempt, and his ears were pointed. I like you, youngster, what's your name? My name is Uzumaki Naruto. At the moment I'm traveling the land training in my new powers before I return to Hyde Ninja Village to become a shinobi. Chiyo smiled and said, My name is Uzumaki Naruto. At the moment I'm traveling the land training in my new powers before I return to Hyde Ninja Village to become a shinobi. For some reason, Naruto made her think of her grandson Sasori, and how much she missed him. She shook her head and went over to examine Gaara's new seal. Chiyo turned back to Naruto and said, This is some of the most complex sealing I've ever seen. It's incredible how many failsafes and constraints there are. As Naruto nodded and said, Hi, it was I couldn't just stand by and watch as one of my brothers being tortured by his tenant. Chiyo looked at Naruto inquisitively and asked, Which one do you hold, young Naruto? While Gaara holds the first, I hold the ninth. The blonde-haired boy in front of them was the strongest Bijou. That is very interesting, young man, said a very nervous Kaze master. Would you please tell us what is your purpose being in our village? I just felt suffering from Gaara, and I can sense people's emotions. Naruto nodded. Because of the immense amounts of rage, hatred, and despair emanating from that land, I intend to visit Kirigakure after this. Even though I haven't received my monthly updates lately, that's all I've heard from my spies. I'm afraid they're dead. Naruto was horrified that someone would kill someone for being different. It was similar to his own life, but much more extensive. What you're talking about in Kiri is a civil war, Chio said, nodding. The Mizu master recently underwent a bloodline purge and ordered the execution of all Kekkei Genkai. Naruto agreed, adding, I will go, my masters. We must help the people there, Naruto, and you get a real challenge there. Starkiller said. Voice Darth Vader replied. Yes, you've been training for a while, you must try out your powers in real combat. The master and puppet master watched as Naruto's eyes momentarily went glassy, as though he were in a foreign planet. Kira felt it was time to talk again. So, Uzumaki, what are your plans? Naruto gave it some thought. First, I wanted to talk to you about a better agreement with Hyde Ninja Village. As a result, I might get a lot of favors and have a better chance of becoming headmaster later on. Furthermore, I was wondering if you might help me control my wind element, as your town is the country with the most wind users. Chio and Kira laughed. This boy is already thinking about the politics of being a master at his age. Kira smiled and said, Well, Naruto, I would like to help you, but you see, I have a small problem. I would be happy to help you in your village if you are able to get rid of it. Chio frowned and Naruto became nervous. What are you up to, Kira? Chio and Naruto gazed at the man, and Naruto started to stutter. Why you want me to do TT that? And what might that be, Master Samakaze? I'm going to be blunt, I want you to assassinate the Wind Daimyo. The master said, placing his hat on his desk and resting his head on his laced fingers. Naruto nodded, and Chio scowled at the master. I have no doubt you've seen the state of my village. The Wind Shadow said, his eyes solemn. The present daimyo is a greedy, arrogant, and crazy individual. He has been draining my community, so we only have enough money in our emergency funds to last us another year. After then, the village would be shut down. Would you be able to kill him without giving either of our villages any proof? If you frame another small settlement, I don't care. What is important to me is that the new daimyo is a responsible person who will help my town grow. If you could accomplish this, my town would be forever grateful to you. After a lengthy moment of silence, Revan remarked. Follow the Force, Naruto, it will tell you what the right thing to do is. After a minute of connecting with the Force, Naruto opened his eyes to the adults, his eyes full with resolution. All right, Kaze Master Sama, I'll handle it. However, you must first inform the headmaster about the plan. Only the larger part on training and treaties. Though worried, Chio came to the conclusion that it was the boy's choice. The murder of a prominent political figure. Well, let's keep that to as few people as possible. After some consideration, Naruto said, Good, is there anything you might need before you go and I send the letter? I was wondering if you know any countries that are famous for special metals, weapons, and gems. The master smiled. You wish to travel to the land of iron, look for the samurai Mifune. Chio replied. Kira looked at this oddly. Tell him that I sent you and that he is to help you if he wants to fulfill his debt. Okay, I'll be back within the week. Until then, please send word to the headmaster of what's going on, Naruto said. As Naruto disappeared into a cloud of black and white smoke, Chio frowned at Kira. Tell Gaara when he wakes up that I'll be back and to train on working with his sand. She left with young Gaara in her hands, saying, If not, it will become a political nightmare. I hope the youngster is not apprehended and questioned. Kira grinned and thought, I don't know why, but I can't help but trust in that youngster. He will go a long way in the shinobi world. The Kaze master took out a scroll and started writing. The headmaster's office. The headmaster was startled to hear the sound of tapping glass because only messenger birds from other masters went directly to the master's office. He opened the window and carefully removed a large brown hawk with a scroll bearing the insignia of the Kaze master on its back. After confirming that the scroll was not a trap, he opened it and was astounded by what he read. Salutations, Headmaster Sandaime. I am the Kaze master, and I am writing to tell you that a boy named Uzumaki Naruto entered my village a few hours ago. I do not know how he managed to get past the guards, but that is not important. The boy has assisted me with a major problem in my life and is working on another, so I am willing to re-examine the Hyde Ninja Village/Suna Treaty and make it more beneficial to both of our nations, that is, if the boy completes the assignment to train with our best wind element masters. If you are interested in the problems your boy fixed, I can only tell you about the first one. It appears that the boy is a master of Fuin spirit art. He helped me fix the seal on my own Jinchuriki. Before you ask, he did tell me who he was. Don't worry, I won't try to brainwash him or hold him against his will because of his help. He told us that he would be going to Iron Country, and then Kirigakure after training. That's all I know at the moment. We agreed to keep the second task secret because it is a very sensitive matter. I will send another hawk to see if he finished it. If not, there may be a great political catastrophe. But somehow, I trust the boy because he brought my family back together, so I will believe him. I must praise the young boy because he has a good political mind. He even said that he is mainly doing this to get favors. so it will be easier to become headmaster. I believe that's everything. If you have any questions, please send it back with the hawk. From Yandame Kaze, Master. After reading the scroll 10 or so times, the headmaster moaned. Maybe, just maybe, it's time for me to take charge again. He then yelled. Oh my log, that boy will be the death of me. Yeah, that sounds like a plan, but first I myself need a plan on how to deal with them. I probably ought to. Council chambers. There were many different types of people there, including the schemers, the bigots, the hypocrites, the egomaniacs, and the arrogants, but there were also some good people. The shinobi council was fine, except for Uchiha Fugaku, who was just as evil as the council of civilians, but I'm getting off topic. The Sandaime headmaster came in with a duplicate of the scroll he had acquired from the Kaze master. He approached and took a seat in his incredibly comfortable chair. I'll get right to the point because I know a lot of you are wondering why I called this meeting. His opponent Danzo cut him off, saying, Get on with it, third headmaster. Where is the Jinchuriki? I think some of you have noticed that a certain boy is missing from the village. The crippled man bowed and added, You will address me as headmaster Sama, is that clear, Danzo? He started to sweat as the headmaster slapped Ki upon his person. Even though the third headmaster knew it was a phony, he decided to ignore it. He raised his hand and said, As for your question, Danzo, Naruto is out of the village. To tell you all the truth, I had no choice. He told me if he wasn't allowed to leave the village for some time, he would have released the 9 fox. The council sighed, and a Nara clan leader muttered, Troublesome. The headmaster yelled, Silence! As many ears perked up. But do not fret, there seems to be good to come of this situation. I just got a message a few hours ago that Naruto is alive and is currently in Suna. After everyone had calmed down, the Sandaime continued. It seems that Naruto has done a great service for the Kaze master, and through that he wishes to talk over a better treaty between the hour and his village. This was in response to a few accusations that Naruto was a traitor. Will you reveal what Naruto did to earn such respect from the Kaze master? Several whispered, while others smiled. The leader of the Hyuga clan, Hayashi, remarked. The third headmaster sighed, praying no one would ask. It appears that Naruto has become a seal master. He assisted the Kaze master by repairing the seal on his Jinchuriki. The headmaster retorted in jest. I want you all to know that Naruto is only helping those like him, the only thing I believe he could call family. The headmaster said, taking a ring of smoke from his pipe before continuing to shout. The demon is gathering followers. This is insane, the Uchiha clan leader said angrily. You allowed a child to control you. This resulted in the loss of our sole weapon. The headmaster slammed his fist into his desk and uttered those words. Watch out for your tongue, Uchiha. My subordinates will not challenge my authority. I couldn't and won't risk the peasants' lives. In my office, Naruto threatened to unleash the 9 fox. I am the only person who now knows the Death Reaper seal spirit art, and I would have died if he had done it. The headmaster took a few deep breaths before deciding to let him go because it was the lesser of 2 evils. Naruto assured me that he will return for the final exams. However, I believe the Kaze master is already Chunin based on what I read in his letter. He is picking things up so quickly that I may need to raise his rank. Are there any more smart questions that people would like to see addressed? After a lengthy period of silence, no one asked any questions, but a few were surprised by the third headmaster's grandfatherly smile. The headmaster stared at everyone, challenging them to ask stupid questions so he could beat them into submission. The chambers were packed before you could say, Kami no shinobi. Now that's all over, I guess all of you have other things to do, so get the fuck out. The third headmaster drew on his pipe for a long time before she spoke. Third headmaster Sarutobi said, I really need to get all that stress out of my system, and left the rooms to go to his residence in an effort to spend more time with his family. How is my grandson, a Naruto student, doing, I wonder? The Country of Wind. After 2 days, Naruto had reached the daimyo's home, which was an oasis in the middle of the desert because it was the only source of water for 100 miles. The excitement coursing through his veins made Naruto feel the cool night air on his skin as he crept through the night with his hood up. Well, let's get this started, he said as he jumped over the town wall and entered the daimyo's palace. The Country of Wind. After 2 days, Naruto had reached the daimyo's home, which was an oasis in the middle of the desert because it was the only source of water for 100 miles. The excitement coursing through his veins made Naruto feel the cool night air on his skin as he crept through the night with his hood up. Well, let's get this started, he said as he jumped over the town wall and entered the daimyo's palace. Naruto was able to approach the building with ease by sticking to the shadows, knocking out and hiding any guards he came across. He descended to the ground with a tiny push of force and landed silently. When Naruto reached the master bedroom, he thought, this is too easy. Something is wrong, the security is way too lax. He thought, keeping his superiors quiet. Using the force, he felt about 100 signatures inside the room. too many for a simple bedroom, and listened in while applying chakra to his ears. When a guy asked, "Are you certain an assassin is on the way, Daimyo Dano?" "Yes, my sensor shinobi have already detected the assassin, but they are unable to determine the precise location," said another stern voice. "However, they did mention the assassin's substantial chakra reserves. Thus, we need to be prepared for anything." Of course, he would surround himself with his guards. Naruto cursed his stupidity. After thinking about it for about 15 minutes, Naruto came up with a plan. Using 10 blank pieces of paper, ink, and a brush, he started making a special explosive tag. After finishing the tags and using chakra to dry the ink, he moved to a nearby window and carefully slid the slips of paper into the room while focusing as hard as he could. 10 tags were skating across the floor, but neither the daimyo nor the guards saw them. For some reason, I have the distinct urge to say, "Art is a bang," and then trigger the tags. Naruto smiled. Well, why not? Every tag was in place, and they were all far from the primary objective. A blonde-haired teenager who enjoys explosives says, "Art is a bang." Somewhere in IWA. Katsu, being aware that another person has participated in appreciating real art. Then, as the daimyo's room filled with balls of fire and dark green gas, Naruto watched as the guards fell to the ground, one by one, either unconscious or dead. The man was trembling like a leaf in a storm, but fortunately, the daimyo was unharmed. Naruto smiled, giving his dark/Sith Orien half of himself a little more control before entering the room, using the force and chakra to fill the man with fear. He locked everyone out by pressing all the doors and windows shut. "Hello, Daimyo Dano, I have come to give judgment for your greedy ways," Naruto said, using force to collect a random samurai sword from the bodyguards who had been murdered or knocked down. "Before I punish you, do you have any final remarks?" The daimyo trembled and begged. Naruto wriggled at the final words. "Please let me survive. I'll give you any amount of money. Strength. Ladies, men? I take it that you're not a eunuch?" A shocked expression froze on his face as he decapitated the obese man, denying the daimyo any more chance to speak. After inspecting the head and all the other bodies, Naruto proceeded to a neighboring rubbish can and emptied his stomach. Mei said in his mind, "It will get easier over time, but you must remember not to shut off your heart or kill for pleasure. Please tell me it's not like this every time. You are only worse than the most dreadful Sith Lord at that point." Naruto thanked his master and continued, searching the office when he came across a vault behind an elaborate portrait of the now-deceased daimyo. And Naruto grinned inwardly. Amidst the gold, jewels, manuscripts, and other valuable items, Naruto decided to take a piece for the Kaze master and a ditto for himself. When Naruto decided it was time to leave Dodge, he immediately locked off everything he wanted. The alarms went off as he left the palace, and he was halfway to Suna when the officials arrived. In front of Naruto, who was grinding like a crazy guy, was a very rare summoning scroll for the giant fire birds, phoenixes. Office of the headmaster. He sighed as he finished the whisker lines under his face. The Sandaime headmaster used shadow clones to finish his daily paperwork while he was painting, and although the village was shown, the headmaster mountain had an extra face, Naruto's face, because the headmaster had already named Naruto as his successor, but no one knew, and no one could challenge it until he had been in office for a week. With a tone full of annoyance, the headmaster said, "What the hell do you want, Jiraiya? How did you find out I was there?" When the third headmaster pointed to a spot where a small monkey was watching over the office, Jiraiya nodded and asked, putting down his spirit painting. The anger in his sensei's voice made Jiraiya wince. "I'll ask again, what the heck do you want?" The room was filled with chaos as the second Jiraiya stated. "Well, I just wanted to check in, give you my yearly report, and maybe check in on Naruto. I am really not in the mood for your shenanigans." "Jiraiya, you should be aware that Naruto-kun is traveling the elemental nations overseas." Jiraiya frowned and questioned. "What do you mean you let him out of the village?" "Last we heard, he was in Suna." The third headmaster let out a groan and stopped the intention to kill. "If he wasn't permitted to go, he threatened to release the 9 fox. He did pledge to return in a few years, so I had little choice." Jiraiya said with contempt. "You just allowed my student's legacy out of the village? Don't even pretend that you care about NRDO, you allowed the wolves to get Naruto. I was preoccupied with my work and the foolish council, and at least Tsunade was misled. However, you went off to work on your spy network. And your foolish, immoral book." Jiraiya cowered in front of his sensei as the headmaster screamed. "Anyway, is there anything significant that transpired from your spies?" After inhaling deeply a few times, the third headmaster inquired. The third headmaster studied the document that the Toad Sage had brought to his commanding commander and read. "The Wind Daimyo was assassinated?" "Yeah, apparently he heard about the assassination, but that didn't stop the assassin." Jiraiya retorted. "When they arrived at the murder scene, they discovered 35 guards unconscious and over 45 dead guards. In addition, the daimyo was decapitated. However, it appears that only around 25% of the main vault was seized during the attack. Was it what Naruto was asked to do by the Kaze master? Anything else, Jiraiya? Pondered the third headmaster. After stroking his beard and turning the page to reveal a picture of two men in black cloaks with red clouds, the third headmaster said, "That's a new organization called the Akatsuki. As of right now, we are unsure of their intent. All I know is that they are pursuing the Bija. Fortunately, I've heard that Hei won't relocate for a few more years. Naruto must be capable of eliminating S and SS rank criminals within that period. We have nothing to worry about if that's all," the third headmaster said with a giggle. "As far as I can tell, Naruto has already reached Chunin level after 6 to 8 months. Jiraiya chuckled. "Like that will ever happen, the only one to do that was Minato, and that took him years. In addition, he has likely outperformed you in sealing." "Shadow clones? How many?" was the only thing the third headmaster said to turn Jiraiya pale. "From his letters he can make up to 250. The sage queried the headmaster, who merely smiled. "You have to keep in mind that he is still quite young for his age. Imagine that added to his father's sealing books and the regular ones I gave him." The headmaster laughed as Jiraiya started to cry in defeat. The third headmaster reopened the folder and found a page about Kirigakure and the Civil War, which made him think of the last letter he had received. The third headmaster put down his pipe and looked at Jiraiya, saying, "I'm hoping to make a difference. I want you to get your spies in Kiri to work overtime within the coming months. I'll be traveling to Water Country in a few months, and I've heard there has been a lot of killing. I am aware that Naruto will make a lot of noise." "My boy, you're going to be a legend." The third headmaster turned his chair and looked out the office window as Jiraiya left in a flurry of leaves, nodding. "All I want is to be present to witness it." Kaze Master's office. Naruto suddenly materialized at work and said, "Yo, don't do that." "Well, you're the head of your village, shouldn't you be more conscious of your surroundings?" Naruto laughed as the Kaze Master jumped and fell on his ass in disbelief. Kira grumbled for a moment before waking up. "You wouldn't know anything about the daimyo's assassination, would you?" "My people have told me that." With a cunning smile, Kira said. "Now how would a young child like me know anything about killing?" Naruto retorted. After a moment of silence, both of them burst out laughing, and Naruto produced a scroll and tossed it to the master. "You did well, Naruto. My royal contact informed me that IWA and AIM's missions will be returned to us by the next daimyo. Our village will once again be healthy because of you. I believe this could assist your village get off to a good start. It contains enough to replenish your emergency village and treasury accounts." Kira looked at the child and said, "But I have a question for you." "What is it, if I may ask?" Naruto produced the scroll and showed it to the master, saying, "I discovered a summoning contract in the vault. Would you allow me to retain it?" "Which contract is it?" Kira asked, scratching his chin. The teacher smiled after examining it and said, "I'll let it happen, young Naruto. It's the least I can do. I think my daughter has been inquiring about you lately. Gaara has been curious about your whereabouts ever since you assisted her." Naruto was gracious enough to blush at this. "I have a lot of work to do right now, but I am really flattered, Kaze Master Dano. However, if it's okay with you, I would be honored to get to know her if I ever see her," Kira answered. "I don't mind at all. Let's complete the deal now. In my community, Ebizo, the brother of Chiyobu-sama, is the best wind manipulator. You'll find him if you find her, but be warned, no one has ever completed their training with him." Naruto smiled and remarked, "Well, I wouldn't want everything handed to me now, would I?" Kira agreed and gave him directions. After a few months, Ebizo agreed to teach Naruto how to control wind during the training. Naruto chose not to use shadow clones during this time in order to receive personal training. Naruto was able to combine wind chakra with his force push during private training to trick opponents into thinking that his force push was a wind technique, and during their conversation over seals, Chiyo gave Naruto a rundown on puppetry, as if he would never have to deal with a puppeteer again. The first book Naruto published told the tale of how Obi-Wan and his teacher found Anakin on Tatooine. He also found his first publisher, though Maul, his Sith master, was a little upset that he had written it at the time of his death. The book was an instant hit, selling more copies than the Ika Ika series, which is pretty amazing, and he now had a steady stream of income. When his training ended, he had to say goodbye, which was quite emotional for him. Fast forward. "You promised to visit sometime?" Gaara pleaded pitifully, holding his teddy bear. "I promise, brother, and if you ever need me, just send out a chakra spike full of Ichibi's power and I'll come as fast as I can," Naruto remarked, smiling after hugging Gaara. Then he went to Kankuro, and the two of them caked like brothers who were often teasing each other. "Now Kankuro, remember you have to stop using Temari-chan's makeup kit, or you'll never get a girl in the future." Naruto chuckles. "War paint! What puts you to sleep at night?" After paying his respects to the Kaze Master and his professors, Naruto turned to confront Temari, who immediately kissed him on the cheek. He blushed and nodded, saying, "You better visit me or I'll drag your ass back and beat it with my fan." Complete the flashback. Naruto's quest was far from over, and he was now heading to Iron Country to locate the parts for his future lightsabers. Naruto struggled to locate Iron Country because it wasn't on any of the usual maps. In fact, I checked all of the Naruto information websites, and not a single map featured Iron Country. In about 2 months, Naruto had stepped up his military training, learned from the Jedi how to read people's emotions and sense danger, and, to the delight of the young boys, Darth Plagueis had shown Naruto Force Lightning. Starkiller had also started teaching Naruto how to meditate and understand the visions that came with it, but he had not yet been given full glimpses of the future. Why not have a spy network? Naruto asked himself as he was on his first trip. As a response, he started building one while traveling. It started off as a small, well-connected traveling business before growing and gaining spies by money, friendship, or the Sith's favoritism through coercion. But at the moment, Naruto was struggling to move quickly from spy to spy, but his ability to create seals saved the day, and by the end of the second month, he had built up a vast network that stretched across all the elemental nations. Naruto remembered that one of his masters had told him about holographic comlinks. It took Naruto a whole week to create the seal that would send visual and audio data from one place to another, and soon every spy in his network had the seal and had been trained to use it. However, enough about what will occur later in the story. As the young nerd got closer to the country of Iron, the power kept pulling him, telling him to take a detour before going there. Not one to ignore the force, Naruto followed the draw and soon came to a large ravine that divided the borders of Kusa and Kumo. He saw a house down in the ravine, but it wasn't just any house. It was a home made of metal and space technology, and he had seen mental images of the technology from his masters. Using the force, Naruto drifted down to the house, where he could see a few maintenance droids, but he could also detect an assassination droid lurking there, waiting to see if the blonde was a threat. When the front door opened and a silver blaster was aimed at Naruto's forehead, he approached it gently and knocked on it without flinching. "Well, that's a friendly greeting." From the shadows came a gruff voice that snarled, "What's your purpose, brat? If you're from some dumb daimyo who wants my weapons, just forget it." As Naruto slowly used the force to turn the blaster away from his head, the gasp came from the shadows. "Where did you learn force manipulation, boy?" growled the man in disguise. "I just want to know how someone has gotten their hands on space tech," Naruto said softly. "I've heard about it from my masters, but I've never actually seen it." The figure emerged from the shadows after holstering his blaster. He was little under 2 meters tall, had dark brown eyes, black hair that was slightly shorter than a buzz cut, and a tough face with multiple unsightly scars from past battles or mishaps. In addition to some very old armor and a metal device Naruto could not identify on his back, the man had 2 blasters on his belt. "I'm Kenshin Fett. Could you tell me the Jedi's name up front?" The man's last name, Naruto thought, made some of his superiors nervous, and he instantly thought of one of Master Mace's stories about how he had decapitated a bounty hunter named Jango Fett. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki, and just so you know, I'm neither a Sith nor a Jedi. I am in equilibrium and do not use either light or evil force. Your name suggests that you are linked to Jango Fett." "Yes, he is my 4-time great-grandfather, but his son, Boba Fett, was a perfect clone of him," Kenshin said, nodding as Naruto bowed in appreciation and sat down at a nearby table. "So it's a little confusing." Kenshin returned after a short break with 2 beers, which Naruto had never had before. "So, could you explain how you were able to control the Force? My understanding was that all Jedi and Sith were extinct. I don't understand how you can use the Force unless you've discovered some holocrons." "I don't see any harm in telling you," he sighed, "since you are the only one who is aware of them. Actually, I'm being taught by 9 Jedi and Sith spirits who are currently residing in my head." "You tell me that 9 Jedi or Sith are staying in your head teaching all you need to know about the Force?" Kenshin's students widened. "That pretty much sums it up," Naruto said in response. "However, unless they are instructing, they tend to keep to themselves. I think it's because they're attempting to save electricity. I'm not really sure." Naruto could feel his master's pain, but again they said nothing. "Now that the introductions are complete, I'm curious as to why you showed up at my front door. Would you mind sharing?" After taking a taste of his beer, Kenshin said. When Naruto tried the drink, he almost choked, but he survived. "Well, if you must know, I'm going to Iron Country looking for parts to make lightsabers. However, when the Force summoned me here, I discovered an ancestor of one of my master's enemies." But Naruto didn't tell the Fett that he had caught the murderer of his previous family. "Well, I can tell you now that you won't find all the pieces needed for your weapons," grimaced Kenshin Fett. "The Daishium power cell is nearly impossible to locate without assistance, however you may locate the crystals and metal components." The force roared at Naruto as he opened his lips to ask a question, and he immediately pulled Kenshin and himself out of the room when a swarm of kunai with explosive notes burst through the windows. Nearly a quarter of the Fett family's house was destroyed by an explosion, but luckily Naruto and Kenshin survived. Kenshin was yelling uncontrollably as the criminals showed up, and there were 2 groups of Kusanin, each with 8 weapons. Kenshin Fett! Our village chief has ordered you to give up your cutting-edge technology and come discreetly to instruct our scientist. If you don't comply, your capture will be more agonizing, the tall, short-haired, green-haired ninja commander yelled. Dare you threaten me? The enemy nin jumped down into the gully, and Kenshin quickly suited up after snarling as he walked up to a neighboring, intact wall, tapped a secret button to reveal a secret compartment, and took out a jet-black replica of Jango Fett's old armor and helmet. Raising his call to conceal his identity, Naruto activated a seal on his arm, causing a large windmill to shrink and emit a puff of smoke. He then charged the weapon with wind chakra and used the force to spin it at incredibly high speeds, literally turning the shrunken into a death-related spinning saw. Attacking my new friend was a grave mistake on your part, Kusanin. I will be angry with you for it. With the seal around his neck, Naruto spoke in a distorted manner. 2 of the Chunin in the first group were hit, depending on their injuries, and fell to the ground while wailing in pain as the nin scattered and launched team assaults on each target. Kenshin then unleashed a volley of blue bolts from his pistol blasters. Naruto's massive blast of wind knocked down the 3 genin and caused the jounin to stagger, allowing him to utilize his floating shuriken to slash the guy in half during the jounin's moment of unsteadiness. The lone genin fighting him was quickly dispatched by a single electrical shock from a taser wire that sprung from Kenshin's weapon gauntlet. The 3 genin who had been whisked away by Naruto's wind spirit technique shivered in fear as the hooded demon raced at them. Naruto's multicolored eyes glittered under the hood's shade, and he quickly murdered 2 of the 3 males by beheading them. In order to conclude the battle, Kenshin used a missile from his jetpack to blow up the leader. The 2 winners passed the terrified female genin, and Naruto waved Kenshin away after greeting her in a distorted voice. Go back to your community and inform your foolish leader of your failure, please. Inform him that Darth Kaze is a new legend that is emerging. Tell the idiot to tell others about it. Then, with a sigh of relief, Naruto stopped channeling chakra into the speech distortion seal and used the force and wind chakra to toss the girl out of the canyon. Well, now that's over with, we can only conclude that your home is now compromised and soon the Kusa village leader will send stronger and more ninja. So, guy, what do you suggest? Well, you could always accompany me. Kenshin growled. I mean, it can be lonely and dull to go alone. Naruto rubbed his chin. What's in it for me? The Fett questioned, his face skeptical. Naruto paused to consider the issue before saying, You get 85% of any bounties that we gain on our journey. Deal! Kenshin exclaimed with joy. After that, Naruto helped Kenshin get rid of the bodies as he removed everything significant from his destroyed house. After about an hour, Kenshin blew up his old house. Let us be off. While we are in Iron Country I can build some things, Kenshin said, raising the sealing scroll Naruto had made for him to contain all of his possessions. In response, the blonde boy said, Yes, let's be off. A secret ninja community is Hyuga compound. The Hyuga possess the lineage to Spirit Art Bakugan, which gives them the ability to see the chakra circulatory system and their surroundings. The current leader of the clan was Hyuga Hayashi, the father of the twins Hinata and Hanabi Hyuga. He looked at the papers on his desk and groaned. They were another request for the caged bird seal to be given to the twins and for a member of the main line to be the clan's heir apparent. They wanted them sealed because they were twins and only one of them could legally be the future clan chief, and they would simply leave when told to spar to see who was stronger. Hayashi usually received these 3 times a week, so he had to read the fine print and be careful about what he signed. They both knew the 64 palm and Kaiten techniques, had started experimenting with new ideas for Hyuga spirit art, were prodigies, pushing themselves to the limit, and were already genin level, but they still needed to enter the academy. Only Hayashi recognized their true strength. You may ask why, but it was because of one Jinchuriki with blonde hair. Hayashi knew that the twins were crushing on each other, and after hearing her twin gush over the lad all the time, Hanabi became infatuated with him, but Hinata's was a little more intense. But it felt odd that Hanabi had told her sister about her sentiments, and Hayashi had been watching when Hinata just embraced him and said, We twins share everything, remember Hanabi-chan? In order to prevent them from being doomed by acquiring the seal, Hayashi then devised a plan to secure a betrothal contract between them and young Naruto. Since Hayashi knew that both his parents and Naruto's parents had passed away, the clan chief had gone to the headmaster, who, after explaining the plan, decided to give Naruto a chance to fall in love with the females first, requiring the young Naruto to wait until the females began chunin. We went back to Hayashi to finish the clan paperwork after a branch member informed us that his twin girls had returned from their private training, and eventually Hayashi let them practice alone. Hayashi smiled, feeling immensely proud of his girl's determination to get stronger, as his 2 daughters entered the room, both of them sweating from their exercise clothes. "How was your training today, my daughters?" said Hayashi. "It was great, father. Hinata and I have perfected our personal spirit art," said Hinabi, who was the more confident of the twins but nevertheless had times of shyness. "However, there is something we wanted to ask you. Most of those incidents happened when she was talking about Naruto or to her father." "Father, is it possible for us to modify the Juken to suit our requirements?" Hinata inquired. "Would you mind explaining, Hinata?" Hinata took a long breath to calm herself, and their father asked after noticing it. "As you can see, father, the current Juken is intended for persons with earthly tendencies. However, Hanabi-chan possesses lightning, and I have water. Therefore, even if we already know the katas, it is challenging for us. We would like authorization to attempt to modify the Juken." After giving the idea some thought, Hayashi grinned and stated, "Okay, you have my permission, just try and keep it from the Hyuga elders as long as possible." His 2 daughters grinned and thanked him before bowing and exiting his office. His expression really showed surprise at the offer. "You would be proud of them," Hayashi mumbled, looking at his wife's picture on his desk. Suna. In the land of wind, the Kaze master was having a day with little paperwork, but it was short-lived as a man in a cloak walked into his office, and Kira frowned as he readied his gold sand for battle, while the man in the cloak smiled ominously. "Good evening, Kaze master. I am here to request your assistance in the assault of another community." Gaara had taught the master how to control the gold sand, which spiraled about him in a protective fashion. Kira growled, "Snake man, you have a lot of nerve entering my village in broad daylight." Only one guy laughed like that. "Kukuku, it appears that my question was in vain, but it makes no difference. I'm here to request assistance in destroying Hyde Ninja Village. I am aware that your daimyo has been sending money to Hyde Ninja Village while draining your village of its resources. We could destroy Hyde Ninja Tribe and bring power back to your tribe with my assistance." Kira decided to cooperate, even though it was surprising that Orochimaru didn't know the most recent daimyo and that his information was more than 5 months old. "I must think on this, Snake Sanin. Come back in 1 month." "Very well, I will return in a month," answered the snake guy. "For the sake of your family, I hope you decide to assist. Wouldn't you want your kids to pass away too soon?" Kira took a shaky breath and said gently, shattering his riches just where he stood before the serpent disappeared, "I need to contact Naruto." Snake Man climbed up into his hidden base from the earth, where his newly trained spy, a small child named Kabuto, was waiting for him. Note that Kabuto is still a child because this is early in the history. "Did everything go as planned, Lord Snake Man?" inquired the little child with gray hair. One more of the pale man's unsettling chuckles. "Don't worry, Kabuto. The Kaze master will understand. However, you must prepare for your incursion for the time being. The Uchiha clan massacre by my agent is the ideal moment. The village will be in disarray after that. An ideal moment to enter." "Are you certain that your agent will be sufficient to eliminate the clan?" "Yes, without a doubt. Given his circumstances, he will be the last person they anticipate. I have some more experiments to examine, so go get ready." Then Kabuto exited to perform his tasks, and Snake Man left the room to punish more innocent individuals for his sadistic pleasure. The 3rd headmaster was thankful that some Uchiha still had the will of fire, and he went over the reports that Itachi had given him. According to a narrative he had received, the Uchiha were preparing a coup. Itachi and a few others were the only ones who did not go along. Now he was weighing his options. Negotiations were impossible, he had learned. The Uchiha were intent on taking over Hyde Ninja Village, Itachi had told him. The issue was that only a handful of his shinobi, of which he was one, were capable of destroying a whole clan, and he didn't want to put the child through that. But he had no idea what to do. The young Itachi was bowing to the old man, who looked up at him. "Itachi, are you certain you want to do this? I could get this done by another team." "I'm sure, Headmaster Sama, all I ask is that you spare Naruto friend," Itachi said, standing up and looking with resolution and sadness. "I think my younger brother will restore honor to the Uchiha name, and I adore him." After smoking his pipe for a considerable amount of time, the 3rd headmaster said, "Very well, Itachi, go and do it." The top master of Sandaime saw blood-red clouds as the sun rose, an omen that made his bones shiver, and Itachi bowed his head and left in a swirl of smoke. Death, death, and wait a minute, more death. When Itachi Uchiha arrived at the Uchiha complex, he discovered that someone had struck the Uchiha in front of him. He investigated every area, but the baby bodies scared him the most. He had planned to remove them from Hyde Ninja Village so they could be spared, but that was not feasible at this time. The newborns' heads were all punctured, possibly by kunai. Itachi continued to search the entire compound until he heard his parents screaming from somewhere within. He quickly fled, and what he found would haunt him for the rest of his natural life. His father fell on the ground in a pool of his own blood, and as his mother got up, Itachi saw a gleam of metal protruding from her back. His mother's body finally struck the earth, revealing the murderer of the Uchiha. It was none other than his younger brother, his friend Naruto, but something was strange. Black flames were all over Naruto's companion's body. Itachi recognized then that Snake Man was the origin of it all. Itachi could barely see what was going on as the Naruto friend looked up at him with an insane smile. "Hi Itachi and I! Just in time for the celebration. The party where everyone perishes." They said that his younger brother had used the power of the curse mark to slay every Uchiha in the district. "Why, an Naruto friend? Why do you ask?" The Naruto friend chuckled. "It's because your parents only give you their full attention. Everyone is watching you. And me, huh? Nobody listens to what the family has to say. However, when Snake Man-sama arrived and paid attention to me, everything changed. He even gave me the ability to murder everyone else, to make up for their disregard for me." As he carefully took off his tanto, Itachi remarked, "I'm sorry this had to happen, Naruto friend, but I hope you find peace in the afterlife." "Kukukukukukukuku. Oh, I don't think you'll be doing that, Itachi-kun," the snake Sennin replied, coming out of the shadows. Itachi glared at the evil person who had corrupted his younger sibling. "Damn you, Snake Man!" exclaimed Itachi. Snake Man just laughed as he lost his temper for the first time. "Don't worry, Itachi, I'll be sure to train Naruto friend-kun to be my perfect vessel." Itachi was slower than a Sannin, but he charged quickly. The Snake Man and his Naruto companion vanished into the darkness. He picked her up and rushed to his hospital, and I prayed and hoped she would survive. Itachi was startled to see that his mother was still alive when he turned to face his dying parents.